Hi, I'm here. This is my first time posting to Reddit. So if this isn't the right place to share my story, please let me know where I should. Also, apologies for any typos or grammatical errors. My phone's predictive text is horrendous. Oh, and my story does have some violence and gore. So fair warning for that too. I grew up in a large city, but I've since moved to a small town. It's quiet, uneventful. You know the type of place where everyone knows your name and business? That sort of place is perfect for me, because I'm an introvert. I currently work at a local gas station convenience store. We don't get a lot of customers, but every once in a while we do get some interesting ones. One of these interesting folks came in last week. She was middle-aged, maybe mid-40s. I remember because she reminded me of a relative. She came in and introduced herself. Her name was Linda, and she said that she had just moved to town. She said she was looking for a new job and asked if I was aware of any openings. I told her that I wasn't, but that the owner was usually pretty desperate for help. So she was welcome to fill out an application. Linda thanked me and said that she would. She then went on to explain that she had experience in retail and food service. She also said that she knew how to use a cash register and had experience stocking shelves. I told her that sounded great and wished her luck. Well, fast forward to Friday afternoon. I was working the register when the bell above the door chimed, indicating that someone had entered the store. I looked up to see Linda standing there with a resume in hand. She smiled and said, "Good afternoon. I hope you don't mind me coming in on your shift, but I wanted to drop off my resume as soon as I finished filling it out." I smiled back and said, "No, it's fine. I'll take it." As she reached out to hand it to me, she dropped it. The resume fluttered to the ground and I bent down to help her pick it up. When I did, I noticed something strange. It wasn't a resume. It was a list of names. I handed them back to her and asked, "Is everything okay?" She looked at me strangely and replied, "Oh yeah, everything's fine." She then looked down at the list again and continued, "Do you recognize any of these names?" I looked over the list and saw that they were all names of people who lived in the area. Again, I looked back up at her and asked, "Not unless you're related to them." She nodded slowly. "Of course you wouldn't know them. You're new here." She paused. "So am I." She then picked up the resume and headed toward the counter. I followed her, still confused. As she approached the counter, she took a deep breath and turned around. She was no longer smiling, and her eyes seemed darker somehow. I couldn't help but shiver. Then she leaned in close and whispered, "Don't look for me. I don't want them to find me." Before I could respond, she turned back around and headed out the door. I watched her leave, still holding the list. Well, I thought it was pretty strange that she handed me a list of names instead of a resume, but I shrugged it off. After all, people are weird. Well, that was until later that night. After I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about the list. I mean, what was it? Was she some kind of stalker? What did she mean when she said not to look for her? And why did she have so many names? I decided that the only way to find out was to check the security footage. So I pulled up the cameras on my phone and checked the footage from earlier that day. Sure enough, I saw her enter the store and approach the counter. But what I saw next made me drop my phone. After she left, two men entered the store. They were both tall and muscular with shaved heads and tattoos. They walked straight to the counter and looked at the list she had left behind. They argued in low voices before one of them grabbed a marker and crossed out a few names. I watched as they left the store and got into a black SUV. The license plate had been removed. Then I saw them drive off. Well, I knew I had to tell the police, but I didn't want to seem like some paranoid, delusional person. So I waited until the next morning and then called in an anonymous tip. I told them about the incident and gave them a description of the men in the vehicle. I even told them what time I believed the men had arrived at the store. Well, yesterday morning, the police showed up at my store asking questions. I told them everything I remembered. Afterwards, they asked if I could take a polygraph test, which I agreed to. They said that they wanted to rule me out as a suspect. So that's what I did. I took the test and passed. Well, a couple hours ago, I got a call from the lead investigator. He said that they found a burned SUV, matching the description of the one I gave them. They also said that they had a couple persons of interest in custody. So I guess the outcome is good. Those poor people were probably on that list. And those guys definitely weren't nice. I'm glad they're in custody. Anyways, thank you for listening to my story. The most terrifying thing I've ever seen wasn't a monster or a ghost, but this. This is the story of the most messed up job I ever had. I was 19 years old and working as a cleaner at a well-known hotel chain. It was my second day on the job, and I was still being shown around by my trainer. She was showing me all the different chemicals we used and where to find them. I remember because she kept saying, "Don't worry, you'll never need these." Then she showed me the staff bathroom. "Oh, and watch out for the spiders in there," she said with a laugh. "They like to crawl in your sink while you re-washing your hands and then jump in your shower when you turn it on." I thought she was joking, but she was serious. Apparently, the maintenance men had been meaning to fix the hole in the wall for weeks, but it kept getting pushed further and further down the list. My shift started at 4 a.m., so I didn't have anyone supervising me. I was working alone and I hated that bathroom. Every time I went to wash my hands, I'd have to kill 2 or 3 spiders. The one good thing about the bathroom was the window. It overlooked the garden and the forest beyond. When the sun came up, The view was amazing. It made going to work at 4 a.m. almost bearable. One morning I was washing my hands before starting my rounds. I turned on the tap and the water was freezing cold. The heater must have turned off during the night. I sighed and started scrubbing my hands under the cold water. Then I felt something wet and slimy slither down my arm. I jumped back and looked down. A huge spider was crawling out from under my sleeve. I screamed and tried to pull it out, but it just kept going further into my shirt. I don't know what kind of spider it was, but I do know it was huge. Its legs were as thick as my fingers, and it was black with red markings. I ran out of the bathroom and straight to my supervisor's office. She listened to me explain what happened, then just laughed. "Oh, honey, you're such a baby. Just get over it." Then she walked out and left me standing there. I went back to the bathroom to get my stuff. I couldn't believe she didn't believe me. I was shaking as I opened the door. I told myself it was just a big spider. No need to be scared. You can just kill it and be done with it. When I turned on the tap again, more spiders came out. There were hundreds of them, maybe even thousands. They were everywhere. I started screaming again and ran out of the bathroom. People were staring at me as I ran past them, but I didn't care. I found my supervisor again and begged her to call pest control. She finally agreed and left. It took 3 hours for pest control to arrive. The entire staff had to leave the building while they sprayed it. I didn't go back to that bathroom for the rest of my shift. I was too scared. I quit the next day. Looking back, I think it was the stupidest decision I ever made. I needed that job, and I could have just sucked it up and dealt with the spiders. But something about that bathroom creeps me out to this day. Even though I know it was probably just a spider infestation, I can't help but wonder if there was something else going on. Something bigger? Something with eyes like this? I got my first real job at 18 years old. It was at an accounting firm downtown. My boss, Mr. Williams, was a middle-aged man who always seemed to be in a bad mood. His office was decorated with hunting trophies, mostly of animals that I'd never heard of. When he talked, his voice sounded like gravel crunching under the wheels of a steamroller. But he was a good teacher and I learned a lot from him. One day he handed me a file and said, "Here, go get this delivered. It's important." The file was thick and heavy. I carried it downstairs and out to his car. It was then I noticed the file didn't have a name or anything on it. So I asked, "What does this say here? It looks like a name, but I can't make it out." Mr. Williams leaned in and said in a low voice, "That's not a name. That's a date. It says March 12th, 1984. And whatever you do, don't open that file until you get home." He watched me walk away with the file, his face unreadable. I felt a chill crawl up my spine, but I shrugged it off. I worked for Mr. Williams for several more months, but that file stayed in the back of my mind. Finally, my curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to sneak a peek. I waited until my shift ended and I was sure that Mr. Williams had left the office. Then I took the file home with me. It was an old-fashioned file folder with metal clips. The paper inside was yellowed and brittle. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear the pages. The file contained personal details of a client, including his home address, phone number, and social security card. But there was one document that sent a shiver down my spine. It was a newspaper clipping, the headline of which read, "Local man vanishes without a trace." The article detailed the disappearance of a man named William Stillman. He'd been last seen on March 12th, 1984, the same date as the file. The photo of the missing man was the same date as the file. The photo of the missing man was the same as Mr. Williams. My blood ran cold. Was Mr. Williams still Mr. Williams, or was he William Stillman, who had gone missing all those years ago? Why did he hire me? Was he trying to find himself, or was he trying to find someone to replace him? I tried to calm myself, telling myself that it was just a coincidence. Maybe the newspaper had simply reprinted the old article, but then I noticed something. All the documents in the file were dated after the article. It was as if Mr. Williams had somehow managed to stop tomfear. Fear coiled in my stomach. I quickly closed the file and raced home. I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was going to happen. I tried to distract myself, but the dread only grew. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was Mr. Williams. "Are you almost done with that project I assigned you?" he asked. His voice sounded too close. I turned around, but it was just a neighbor. I forced myself to answer the phone. "Ah, yeah, I finished it today," I lied, hoping he couldn't hear the tremor in my voice. "Good. Bring it in tomorrow morning. We need to go over it." He hung up. I threw the phone down, my heart pounding. I paced my apartment, consumed with fear. What did Mr. Williams want with me? Why was he keeping me at the office so late? I tried calling my colleagues, but they didn't answer their phones. The clock ticked, each second dragging me deeper into despair. Suddenly, a loud knock on the door made me jump. I peeked through the peephole and saw Mr. Williams standing there. A sense of foreboding washed over me. I hesitated, fear paralyzing me, before I finally found my voice. "Mr. Williams, what are you doing here? You scared the hell out of me," I said, my voice shaking. He looked at me for a moment without saying a word. Then he reached out a hand, his face illuminated by the hallway light. "Come with me," he said. His eyes were dark and intense, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something wild in them. The sight of Mr. Williams standing there, the darkness behind him, sent a chill down my spine. I couldn't help but think of the missing man in the newspaper clipping, of the unfinished file. Against my better judgment, I took a step forward and opened the door. Now, would you open the door? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, check out others like it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos. See you next time.